Tuesday, April 4th, 2023, special call board meeting. I will now call this meeting to order. We will start off with pledge and from there invocation, please. Would everyone stand?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight to ask you to be with each and every one of us as we do the complete this the special board meeting, and as we call everyone together to work on the budget for next year. Lord, be with all of us. Let us make wise decisions on what the schools need, what the staff has requested, and what the district can afford with the budget that we're dealing with. Be with each and every one of us to put the students first, no matter what we do, and guide us and direct us in everything else we decide and make decisions on, and be with us, and safe traveling mercies home. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Amen. You may be seated. First, we have
Madam Chair, before we do begin with the meeting and approval of minutes, could we have a moment of silence for the families and the school in Nashville?
Yes. Thank you. I would like to entertain a motion to approve of the agenda, please.
Madam Chair, I wonder, do we want to consider the Rice Festival Friday on this agenda, or is that something that'll be on the April 18th agenda? It's Friday, April the 28th, if we're going to think about an early dismissal.
Well, we can be thinking of, go ahead, Dr. K, if you want.
I can respond if you like for me to.
Okay.
It's already on the April 18th agenda for discussion and action.
Thank
But
you.
for right now, that would be the committee of the whole meeting, correct? So we wouldn't vote until the 25th, which is the week of the Rice Festival?
But we're on this agenda here, we are voting to combine the two meetings for the 18th.
Correct, but that hasn't been passed yet, so.
Well, then we'll wait till we pass it and then we can decide.
I'd like to make a motion before we approve this agenda to add the Rice Festival as early dismissal on Friday, April the 28th for action.
I can second it.
I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Okay. The motion passed.
So would we add that as 2.03?
I would like to can we just go ahead and approve the agenda? I mean, because regardless of what, we're always going to approve that process. The children is always going to get a breakthrough. So what you're telling me is 2.2, you're not going to approve to combine the meeting? Is that basically what a decision has been made for you all?
That's not what I said at all, Madam Chairman. I just said that that vote hasn't been taken yet, and I don't want us to be presumptuous as to assume that something is going to occur. If for whatever reason 2.02 does not pass, then that means we will be taking the vote to dismiss early on Rice Festival Friday on the Tuesday before that Friday. That was my only concern.
Okay.
And moving forward, if the agenda was just amended, we're adding that to 2.03 for new business.
And now can I go ahead and get an approval of the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda adding 2.03 that will take action on whether to have Rice Festival Friday as early dismissal, April 28th.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? 3-2. I understand that the bond revolution for Mr., what is that, Dameron, he is caught in traffic right now. So we have a quorum, so I guess we can go ahead and discuss 2.02 until hopefully he'll be here soon. Okay, I would like to entertain a motion that we cancel the April 25th, 23 regular board meeting to combine April 18th, 2023 committee of a whole meeting.
Madam Chairman, can I just ask what the rationale is in doing that?
As I called and discussed, there were certain board members, faculty and staff that will not be available for the 25th meeting. And we felt like we could combine and still take care of business. After speaking with the attorney, he didn't see a problem with it. I told him that I would put it on the agenda so we can discuss. I think I made some calls and I got some yes, majority yes, and I think I got a couple that was like questionable. When I called Darryl, when I called you, I didn't get an answer. So I did talk with Sharon and asked her to discuss it with you.
Okay, so just, again, not to belabor the point, but just for clarification, April the 18th is the committee of the whole, which is where our staff presents information to us. What does the presence of the staff have to do with our voting meeting on the 25th?
Because there will be action taken on some of those, and if you don't have the department head there, then it's a conflict. That's why we wanted to combine, and also due to spring break is why things were pushed back. So would there be a problem combining the meeting?
Madam Chair, not a problem. I just worry about the focus that we have in just beginning the committee of the whole meeting. The reason that meeting was, just put into place at the beginning of this calendar year was for more transparency, more discussion, more ability to better understand the things that we were voting on as board members. Two, it allows for the reports to come in on 1 week. If there's any feedback, which this is a big month for us, so much going on, and the spring break week just being the week before, I know that I would think that on the agenda we're talking about some facility changes, that those sort of things that I really feel that we could use some input from our constituents in making those decisions. If the 25th is not a date that works for some for some staff members, we might consider a date later that week.
And that is why, because when I was having 2 meetings, there was saying, why are we having 2 board meetings in a week? I'm not discontinuing. I'm not discontinuing, but the next week is the 25th. And we're not discontinuing the meeting. It's just that there is 1 month that we're going to combine. If there is a situation that occurs and there is business that has to be taken care of, there's always availability to call a special meeting. Combining the meeting just for this 1 month, I don't feel is going to create a major problem.
It's not a problem, Madam Chair. We haven't had yet a policy committee meeting as of yet. We only met 3 weeks ago, and so that's not been established. I don't think that obviously I'm describing in detail why I don't feel that this is a good move forward for our district, but I'm happy to put it to a vote if we're discussion.
And that's why I tried to discuss, and I think when we discussed it, I didn't think you had a problem with it. I thought you agreed with going ahead with it.
I did. I also sent you an email about the policy committee meeting. Do we have any dates for that so that we can move forward on reviewing those policies?
We can discuss a policy meeting tonight and come up with a date, but even discussing policy is not always that we agree on, so there's always open for discussion. I just feel that if we can have everything on the 18th, but everyone has to make their own decision. Mr. Murdoch, you came in late. We were talking 2.02, trying to decide whether to cancel the 25th meeting, regular board meeting, to combine the committee of a whole and regular board meeting on the 18th of April. So now that we have discussed, we can go forward if there's no other discussion with it. Darrell, it seemed like you had something else you wanted to say?
No,
Okay. So we have a motion.
I don't think you do.
Can I get a motion? Can I get a motion?
Dr. Cave, can anyone tell us if there is a date that works better the week of the 25th other than the 25th? If we were to consider?
The staff is unavailable the 25th through the end of the week. The only date that works that day, the only day that works that week is Monday, the 24th.
Okay. And that extends, that staff that are unavailable extends to what? I mean, are you present for the 25th?
I am not.
Well, yeah, Ms. Strobel said, well, that's different.
Okay, can I get a motion for 2.02?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we keep the committee of the whole meeting on April the 18th and change the regular scheduled board meeting April 25th to Monday, April the 24th.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed?
It's a tie vote.
Yes. Do you all need to discuss this some more to see where we can go with this? Because,
Well, Madam Chair, in all fairness, I think the alternative was just made a motion and you guys voted against it. So evidently, we leave it like it is on the 18th and the 25th. There was a alternative just proposed and it was voted down, so.
well, I feel that if the superintendent is not here and most of the staff, there's no reason to have a meeting on the 25th.
The superintendent just said that they would be available on the 24th, and that's what the motion was
Said
made
the
for.
25th.
She said the only day that would work would be on Monday, the 24th. Is that correct, Dr. Cave?
The only day that would work for me would be the 24th. Everybody else is not available the rest of the week. I can be here on the 24th.
And that was the motion that was made and just came to a stalemate, so.
That's why we need an attorney present.
Well, we leave it at the 18th and 25th, and we won't have, there will be no staff here to have it.
I think that's why the
called-
alternative was made for the
And
24th.
I called and discussed with everyone to combine, and, if it was such a major issue, it's like we still haven't have a policy committee together yet. Who to say we will get one before the next meeting? It's like, why can't you combine it? I don't see a major problem.
Why can't we go to 24th? That's when she can be here and keep our calendar like we said in January.
But when I called and discussed with you, that wasn't an
Told you I wasn't in
issue.
favor of canceling, we just
No,
started
you
this
said you were in
process.
favor of having two meetings. We
Right.
have one now, and then we're having one next week. So this
No,
is a budget
isn't-
meeting,
This
so.
isn't the April meeting. The April meeting is the 18th.
We're gonna have to try to work together with things, because, it's like when I'm having two meetings in a week, I get complaints. When I'm trying to combine to one meeting, I get complaints. It has to go to where it's gonna be favorable for everyone and not just for individually. It's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Madam Chairman, a motion was made for
It didn't pass.
compromise, and
It didn't pass.
you, as well as other board members, voted against the compromise, so I'm not sure, whenever
And
you're
you
talking
and
about
other
all of
board
us
members
working
voted for
together
something else.
instead of individuals, I'm not real sure what you're talking about.
Okay, so you didn't agree with what I was asking, so it's like, who's
We need to-
in charge?
I'm sorry,
Come
call it
on.
Order. We need to be back on track, and if
Of course, just like we discussed, you know?
The motion's been made and did not pass, so moving forward, we need to.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
So, Mrs. Amron, you are here.
I don't know what we're gonna do.
If you would like to go ahead and present. Yeah, I don't know. Thank you.
Mr. Dameron, while you are passing out these copies, I'm not sure what is in your presentation or how you're going to go about it, but I would ask, we have a couple of brand-new board members who have never been board members before. So as explanatory as you could be about this whole process, would be very appreciated and very thankful.
First, it's good to be with you all tonight, and I appreciate you putting this on the agenda tonight instead of later in the month. I will be traveling through the 18th, and a long-awaited cruise that my wife assured me that we would be going on since COVID is now behind us. So what I want to do is kind of go through the debt capsule report to start with. What we're talking about tonight is your all's annual general obligation bond that's sold through SCAGO. And SCAGO is the South Carolina Association of Governmental Organizations. And it's a process that's been in place for 22 years. Colleton County School District has been a participant in that most of those years. And it's where school districts, small, medium, and large, in the state of South Carolina join together. They issue their bond, and then it's marketed through SCAGO as one large issue. So we're able to take issues from $800,000 that was approved by Hampton County School District last week to the $13 million that you all would be authorizing issuance to Greenville and Beaufort and some of the larger school districts. So it's a way of school districts joining together to take advantage of issuing the bonds. And so we're able to spread the cost of those bonds over all of those districts from a standpoint of bond counsel, financial advisor, ratings fees, and so on, and our marketing expenses. And so what these bonds do, as opposed to just issuing on your own and usually going through a bank bid, these are actually sold on the money markets in New York. So we're able to go, they'll have a AA rating from the state on the bond issue, which gives you the best possible interest rate that you could get when we go to market. And so SCAGO is by far the least expensive way for school districts to join together and issue debt. Just like cooperatives on buying books and all the other things that you do, buying against on the state, purchasing items, you get the ability to go together. So when we issue those bonds, the first thing I always want to do with the board is to talk a little bit about where you are today. And I think it's important for you to understand, and I know some of you are new to the board, and so they'll give you an opportunity. Those of you that have been around for a while have seen this presentation or something similar in the past, but I think it's important that we go through that step. So the first page is a debt capsule report, and this is a list of all the bond issues that the Colleton County School District is obligated for. As you can see, they're issued by column A as a bond series. That's when they were actually issued. As you can see in column B, the largest amount is the installment purchase revenue bonds. And these were bonds that are issued entered into in 2016, late 2015, 2016. And those bonds are currently at a 3.253% interest rate. There's about $48 million left on those bonds, and a big part of what you borrow each year in this $13 million annual bond is to make the payments on those installment purchase revenue bonds. The way that state law requires those bonds to be paid is for you to issue a general obligation bond each year, and what you are doing is you're buying an undivided fractional interest in that asset. In this case, I think it was a high school. And then you issue the bonds to do that and buy the purchase. So each year, you're gaining a larger and larger and larger percentage of ownership of that building and the property that was in the installment purchase revenue bond. And so the bond goes down as it does accordingly. The rest of the bonds are issued over the years through issues of trying to raise money for equipment or technology. And has been funded through these various programs that we've done for years and years and years. I know one year we funded a vehicle fleet because there are a number of vehicles that all were in very, very poor repair and had to be replaced, and so we did what was called an acquisition agreement, which is like a capital lease. So each year we make a general obligation bond to pay that payment on that acquisition lease. So the vast majority of the $13 million that you're hopefully going to approve tonight to issue for this year, most of that money goes to make payments on these existing bonds that are in place today. The other factor that's important to look at on this report is the interest rate. And as you can see, the interest rate on all of those bonds are very, very low in today's market especially. The current market on bonds is about 4 to 4.5%. So if you had to go in the market today and borrow money to build a new high school, borrow money to do all the projects you've been doing, you'd be paying a lot higher interest rate than you are. The other factor that is important for you all to look at and think about is in column F, which is the final maturity. And as you can see, the largest of the bonds, the installment purchase revenue bonds, pays off in 2031. So in 8 more years, that payment will be gone. You won't be making payments on that. The rest of them, a lot of the acquisition agreements pay off between now and 2027. So everything is pretty short term. You don't have any bonds that are going out 40 more years or 30 more years. Most of your debt is all being cycled off or paid off relatively quickly. So in the next 8 years, the district would be back to just issuing whatever they need going forward. But you won't be having to borrow that money every year to make the big payments on the installment purchase revenue bond. So the next page is a breakdown of how the SCAGO bond resolution that's on the agenda tonight would be, what the purposes would be for that. And as you can see, under the spring, we'll issue 2 times. We'll issue in the spring and we issue in the fall. You all adopt one resolution that covers both the spring issue and then also the fall issue. And the reason we do that is that one of the payments is due in June 1st on the installment, and the other payment's not due till December. So we don't want to be issuing debt in May when we'd be making the June payment and have it set in the bank someplace, accruing interest at the same time when we have that December payment that's coming in December. So the fall issuance is always done usually in September. And as you can see in the spring issue, the installment purchase revenue is $1,105,988. And in the fall, it's $5,545,988. So a vast majority of those payments are going for installment. The special obligation bond is a bond that was used to finish part of one of the schools for equipment. So we didn't have enough under the installment purchase revenue bond to finish the project, so we issued what was called a special obligation bond. You all make a payment each year on that. It's structured so that it actually kind of pays off after the installment has gone away and pays off very quickly, but again, it's stretching the payment. All of these are done under the basis of keeping the millage at 54.5 mils, the current debt service millage. We've not had an increase in debt service millage in the Colleton County School District for a long, long time. So everything that we do in sizing your debt is sized so that it does not exceed the 54.5 mil requirement, so the auditor would put that on. And we work with the auditor and the treasurer, and Ramona and I make calls to them as we get closer and closer to the year to actually size the actual amount of new money that's available for the district for other purposes. As you can see, the acquisition payments are due in the fall. That totals about $700,000. We have new money. We have $2.1 million of new money that'll be available for the school district and for you all to approve for a variety of capital projects that would be available for in your capital funds. Again, this is structured at the 54.5 mils. And then you'll see $145,000 in the fall. And sometimes people ask me, well, what is that? Well, the school district, because you entered into an installment purchase revenue bond, you guarantee the people who bought those bonds under the IPRB that you would keep that high school and that property that secures that debt insured. And the law allows us to actually issue general obligation bonds and move the cost of that insurance on that building to the debt service side so that you're not having to pay that insurance payment on that building out of your general fund. And general fund, as you know, is very tight. You're limited by state law as to how much the general fund millage could be. With inflation, we've got a lot bigger limit today than we had the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, but some years you couldn't go up on operational millage, but maybe 1% or less. So it was really important as these were structured to make sure that anything we could get out of the general fund millage, we could get out and put it over into the debt service. And again, it falls under the 54.5 mils. Cost of issuance is the two figures of 22.5 and 31. That's an estimate of what the cost is going to be to issue these two bonds. Again, you get a very, very reduced rate of cost of issuance because of the pooling effect that SCAGO has. So you have a total of $3,258,488 in the spring and $6.4 million in the fall. And you say, well, that doesn't add up to be $13 million. Well, what we do is we have a buffer that you all approve. And then as we get toward June 30th, Ramona and I will start working with the county auditor. And the goal is to establish the amount that you borrow enough to keep it at 54.5 mils, not go above, but not have it drop below that number. And the auditor, by law, will gauge and measure that, and they won't just put 54.5 mils on just because you want it on. They have to make the adjustment. So we work with them, making sure that the millage stays level and flat. And the reason is we like millage to be stable. We don't want the debt service millage to go up one year and down the next year and up and down and up and down. I assure you, if it goes down, you won't get a thank you note from anybody. But if it has to go back up, just because you didn't borrow more money, but just because there's a cycle, then you will hear from people over that. So we think it's important for the taxpayers as well as for you all to try to keep the millage at that nice level, 54.5 mils. And so everything is structured on doing that. I believe, based on where we think collections are, the amount of money that's in the debt service sinking fund that's at the county treasurer's office after bond payments are made, that will have the availability to issue some new money for you all to have in the fall. We don't know what that number is until after June 30th and all the dollars are in, but we kind of true up to that number each year. And then Ramona will come back and she'll say, I've got X number of dollars of more capital money that you all can spend, and based on where the board decides to spend it. And that's part of the budgeting process that you all go through each year. So that's the proceeds of the $13 million action item that you will have. The next page is a graph, and this is just a graph that kind of shows you how all the payments are put together. And I think people like to see, most people like to see a graph as opposed to just a lot of numbers. I'm an accountant, so I love numbers, but the graphs I think are a lot easier for people to understand. And as you can see, we're targeted to 54.5 mils. You can see those numbers have continued to go up a little bit each year. The graph is on a slight rise, and that reflects the growth that's been taking place in the district of where a mill is generating a little more money each year. But you have inflation and you have other costs that you have to cover and provide, and so we've been able to manage all of that again on the 54.5 mils. As you can see, we're estimating that 54.5 mils to be about that figure all the way through 2032. And that's the magic date of when the installment purchase revenue bond pays off. At that point in time, if you do nothing else and you just keep borrowing this small amount of capital money each year, your millage is going to drop pretty significantly. So as you're looking at budgeting and looking outward and you're thinking about other projects you need to do, think about those dollar figures in 2024, 5, 6 to about 2030 would be a time to be thinking about what other major project do we have that we want to fund. And you'll be able to do that because your payments on your old bonds are paying off, and you're going to be freed up with a lot of money to use under the 54.5 mils, and you still won't have to go back to the voters for a millage increase. You may have to go back to the voters for approval to do a project that's over your 8% debt limit, but from a millage standpoint, you'll have a lot of millage ability to handle those type of projects. So the good thing is everything in the debt structure is sound. The district is being well managed. You're operating and have been operating for a number of years at the 54.5 mils, so you're pretty much staying on target. The next page is nothing more than just the numbers. And as you can see, as time goes forward in that annual maintenance column, you're going to get more and more each year as the old bonds are paid off. However, we might have to use a little bit of that if you have a technology refresh, or if you have something else that is more than the normal $2.5 million you spend. We might have to borrow a little bit of money through a lease process, and then that will help go make the payments on the leases. So the 54.5 mils has a tremendous amount of flexibility for the school district. The next page is your debt service millage cash flow report, and this shows you what the value of that mill has done. As you can see, the last couple of years, the value of a mill has grown at about 5%. When I do all the estimates of how much money is going to be available going forward at the 54.5, I only use a 1% growth factor because I think it's more conservative to do that. And then on June 30th, when the numbers have actually been collected, we know how much money is available that could be used for additional capital for the school district, and that's when we issue that extra little additional money to keep it at 54.5 mils. But as you can see, it's kind of a breakdown of where those dollars come from and what the growth value has been. The last page is the constitutional debt limit calculation for you, and I know your auditor probably talked about this as well, but in the process, you can borrow money two different ways. One, you can borrow money by going to the voters and having a certain set amount through a referendum and get voter approval for you to incur that much debt, or you can use your 8% constitutional debt limit. The 8% constitutional debt limit for the school district is a little over $16 million. After you would issue up to this amount, you still have a $4 to $6 million amount of money that's available in your 8% debt limit. Even issuing the 13, it would get it down to about 3. Issuing 11 to 12, like we're thinking it's going to be, you'll have about 5 to 6 million of 8% capacity. So even though you're issuing your bonds this year, you've still got a very, very strong 8% debt limit. You've got the capacity that if you have a significant problem, or if you need to fund a project that's, say, $5 million or $6 million, you'll be able to do that through your 8% debt limit. And again, the amount that's paid back would then be amortized each year out of the 54 mils. That's kind of the end of the Bonds 101 that we do each year. I'll be glad to answer any questions. This is a program that you all have been involved with for quite a while, and it's really not any different than where the district goes. Anything that is borrowed other than the payment for existing debt, you all would actually approve those capital items, and Ramona, Dr. Cave will come to the board and have a list of capital items for you all to approve each year. Our goal is just to continue to fund that pool of money that's available for you all to determine how it's spent on a capital basis. Do you have any questions on the bonds, your debt, how things are calculated?
Any questions? The
action item tonight is the general obligation bond through SCAGO. It has a not to exceed of 13. We don't anticipate issuing up to 13, but that will give us flexibility to make sure that we keep the millage at the 54.5 range, and that we don't leave too much money in the debt service fund that's been collected over the years that would incur the county to lower your millage and then have to raise it back up the next year. So we work with them on a really ongoing basis. We won't know that exact number until probably 1st of August, I think, Ramona, is about what we end up getting the information from, and then we make those calculations, and then if there is any available money, it would come back to the district through the issuance of the fall issue.
If we, you said we need action tonight, and if it's passed, how soon will you all start working towards? Will it be July or?
No, we will, the reason for the urgency of approving it tonight would be, number one, I'm going to be in France on the 18th with my bride of 43 years on a cruise. But we will actually sell these bonds the second day of May, and so we'll close about the 21st, 22nd, 23rd of May, and then the money will be available to the district when we close. So it'll be in the district's coffers before the end of June, before the end of May, actually.
Okay. Craig, you just came in, and I know you hadn't had a chance to look over. Do you have any additional questions just from, can I get another packet from you, please?
Certainly.
You had a question?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Dameron, did I understand correctly that we do not know what our capital projects amount will be yet?
The amount that we're budgeting for out of this issue is $2.1 million that'll be available for capital projects.
Okay.
I think and have a pretty high confidence level that there will be availability of some more. I just don't know how much until we finalize the amount that was collected through the
And that's, you
millage.
said that was the beginning of June you started that process?
We will start the process after the books close on June 30. We have to wait till the auditor closes out their book, and the treasurer closes out their books with taxes coming in, and then usually we give them another 30 days to come up with kind of the final closing number, and then we will make an estimate with those sizings as to how much of that debt service fund can be used toward the capital projects for you all. But again, the whole basis is always maintaining 54.5 mills.
Okay. One more, Mr. Dameron. I'm looking at these different, the different bonds and stuff that we have that we owe money on. In my personal financial life, for instance, on my truck, I can pay extra ahead on principal, so I don't have to pay as much interest by the end. Can we, if there is any more money over the 2.1 million that we find out like June 30th, instead of adding that to our capital projects fund, can we use that to pay off some of these other bonds, or?
Not generally. Usually, the bonds and the leases are sold on a tax-exempt basis, so we get a very preferred interest rate from the banks. And part of that preferment is the fact that
They want all their interest.
They want that interest
I got you.
on that excess money. The column G on the first page.
Yes, sir.
Refers to call information. And that is when you can actually prepay or pay extra down. And as you can see, the only one that has that availability was the 2022 acquisition or lease agreement. And that one is at 2.75%. You would actually today be better than paying that off to put it in LGIP, the local government investment pool, which is the treasurer's office. The last time I checked, it's issuing over 4. It's a little over 4% that they're paying you on having your money there. So it would be a loss of about 1.5% to actually pay off early.
Okay.
The rest of them are showing non-callable dates, so they're sold on that type of basis. And then the first three, the call information is in 2025. With interest rates as they are today, I don't think we'll be able to refinance those. Those are target dates for us and for you to consider what the interest rate is you're paying on those bonds. Go back into the market if we think we can sell them for less. If it was a year and a half ago, we could have sold those bonds for less, but they weren't callable.
But not now, right?
Are they going to be back to those figures in 2025? I don't know. If I knew that, I'd have a crystal ball, and I wouldn't be out here doing this for a living. But that's really the only callable provision that you all have on the debt.
I got you. So the reason we get such a fantastic interest rate is because we've basically made an agreement with them that we're going to pay them all the interest on that.
That's right.
I got you. Okay.
It's
Thank you.
part of the bidding process. And what we generally see is when a bank bids on an acquisition agreement, if we put language in that says we can pay you anytime we want to, the interest rate's usually higher.
Got you. Thank you, Mr. Dameron.
My pleasure.
Any more
Good question.
questions?
This is a question for Ms. Barrett. Just in my understanding of the capital projects as they were reviewed the last budget work session, we talked about some technology needs that could be pulled out and be used with current bonds that would not be a part of that 2.1. That would be all part of this resolution that we are approving tonight and does not include any additional payment from us.
That's part of that extra technology that we wanted to put in there.
Get your mic, please.
You're fine.
Yes.
That would be part of that technology that we're trying to buy, that we didn't have enough money to take care of on our capital project fund, because we have that. That would be the laptops and the various other things that we need, the technology needs for the district.
Okay. And just, if I may, one clarifying question, that we're authorizing the issuance and sale of, to go along with the SCABO program to not exceed $13,000 is the
Correct.
resolution we're considering.
Okay.
Thank you.
If there is no other question, can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we accept the resolution, bond resolution as presented, authorizing the issuance and sale with the SCABO program to not exceed $13,000 of general obligation bonds.
You said it was 13.
13 million. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
Since it's,
A second.
you had a question? Okay.
Thank you. I said 13,000.
We have
I
a,
work in smaller dollars.
we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Yes, isn't it? I just want to take the time to,
The addition of 2.03 before we go into for the vice president.
go ahead and do that, so I'll do this recognition later. Go ahead.
What is it?
We're going to now introduce new business 2.03. Is there any discussion with this? Oh, did you not, would you explain to me?
I make a motion that the addition to the agenda that was approved, 2.03, the Rice Festival Friday, which Dr. Cade mentioned at one of our previous meetings, we would need to vote for them to have early release so that our staff and students can enjoy Rice Festival Friday on Friday, April the 28th.
A second.
Any comments, questions? This is a motion that is always in action. I think, Dr. Cave, you said it would be on the next agenda. They just wanted it for tonight.
Yes, ma'am, it was going to be on the next agenda. It still is on that agenda, but I'm not sure where the next agenda is at this point. So it is on the next agenda, though. We have a draft for you to look at, because that was a request for you all to peruse that agenda in a draft this evening. But yes, ma'am, it is on the next agenda.
Okay. Well, we don't have to really approve it, we just approve you.
The motion was made and seconded, so we need to take it to a vote.
But don't the agenda need to be amended, or we did?
We already amended, we amended the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. Unanimous. Would you have something else to add? Oh, yeah. You didn't have anything else. Okay. I want to take the time to acknowledge Mr. Al Jenkins. Let me get this right. You're the regional director for Senator Tim Scott. Okay. I just wanted to take recognition of him. He came in to attend our meeting with us tonight, so I just want everyone to acknowledge.
Good evening. Thank you.
I'm sorry, and you said he was a representative of Mr. Tim Scott? is that-
He is a regional director. He is in the office with Senator Tim Scott.
So, Mr. Jenkins, correct? What office, what location are you out of?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to address you. Superintendent, thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
So I am the Regional Director for U.S. Senator Tim Scott. I serve 11 counties for him. I'm out of the Charleston office, and anything federal, any connection, federal agency or federally in any connection with education, I will be available to the superintendent or you to make the initial contact, and then I can get whatever you need the senator to put his eyes on, ears on. I will be the contact for you.
Awesome. And so you brought us a whole box full of your business cards with contact information.
I do have that, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I'll be happy to
Thank you,
share
Mr.
that.
Jenkins. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. You already got it. Okay, this conclude our meeting for tonight. Can I entertain a motion for adjourn?
I had one question. In the absence of a parliamentarian, does anyone know, can we revisit the motion that tied? Did everyone clearly understand it? We don't have a parliamentarian, so I'm asking a question.
In the absence of the parliamentarian, normally the superintendent provides the guidance, so you can revisit the motion if you so desire to revisit the motion.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I make a motion that we revisit the motion that where we compromised on,
It didn't get a second.
Second. If there's no questions, all in favor of adjourning, please signify.
Did it get a second?
You said.
I just seconded.
Oh, you second? Okay.
I mean, we can.
There's been no change, so we have to meet on that Tuesday. No, but, right, but we can't do any business.
thank you, Dr.
Can't vote.
Thank you, Dr. K, for clarification. Madam Chairman, if it's appropriate, I was making a motion that we revisit the motion where we have a compromise for having our meeting that's regular scheduled on the calendar for the 18th. That's our committee of the whole.
We had.
And the second meeting, Dr. Cave can be present on the 24th and not the 25th. So we were wanting to have our second meeting on Monday, April the 24th, so Dr. Cave can be present. Do I have a second?
Well, you hadn't had a vote on my motion yet, which had a second. You
I
didn't give
just
her time.
We had a motion on the floor. We have a second. All in favor of the motion that is on the floor, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? The motion failed. Mr. Mitchell.
Ms. Strobel's motion still active if there's a second? Or does she have to remake that motion, Madam Chair?
She has to restate her motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair, in the essence of trying to reach compromise for our meetings in April, we have on schedule April 18th meeting. We have just made a motion, I'd like to make a motion to revisit that we have our second meeting in April for action on April the 24th. That's a Monday instead of a Tuesday that was scheduled, so Dr. Cave may be present.
Second.
Is there any discussion? And like I said before, I called everyone. We made the agreement. Majority have agreed to have everything on the 18th. Due to spring break, staff not being available, I don't understand why we can't combine and have everything. It's not like we're going to omit anything. Nothing is going to be missed. Everything will be discussed. Action will be taken. But all in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your right hand. All opposed? We're so divided. The motion passed. And I think I discussed with everyone what it is. I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. We adjourn. Good night, everyone.
We now move on to the budget workshop.
work session in order. And then I will have Ms. Ramona come up and start the meeting or the workshop. No.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm not going to be before you long, I promise. I just wanted to go back over with our budget work session 2 to give you all some more information on our budget process and what's going on with the budget, and a little historical of the budget and how we got here and where we are now. You got. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, fiscal year 2024 budget overview. First of all, we want to say how the budget is aligned with our mission, vision, and core values. Dr. Cave, would you like to come up and give that?
Good evening.
Good evening.
So when we had our last budget work session, there were some special requests made, and we worked as a team to try to make sure we accommodated those requests. So let's talk about how our budget is aligned to our mission, vision, and our core values. Well, first of all, 87% of our budget is used for instructional and support staff. I've highlighted certain particular words in there because of our mission and our vision and our core values. 2% of our budget is used for instructional supplies and allocated to our schools directly to support teaching and learning, as well as included in these allocations is also the funding for our school resource officers that we do through a grant, where the school district pays a portion and then we are funded a portion of that money as well. 7% of the budget is used to ensure that every student is afforded sufficient and appropriate supports. Included in that are the utilities, insurance, paying for brick and mortar, technology, as well as some of the special services. So that's part of that 2%. And then the other part of the 2% of the budget is for organizational development as well as professional growth, provided for all of our employees. School board budget is there, attorney fees are there, superintendent budget is there, human resources, as well as finance. So that's how the current budget, not Title I, not ESSA, none of those, just our general fund, is aligned to our core mission and our vision, as well as our core values. Okay? All right. Margo?
Okay. The next slide is capital versus operational, and what is the difference? The district budget has several different funds. Each fund has rules on how the money in the fund can be spent. All the money can be spent on various things. It's have various rules. Two of the major funds in the district budget are the capital and the operating. The operating, which is our general fund, provides most of the fund used for day-to-day operation of the school district. The salary and benefits of most employees are paid from the operating fund, as well as overhead expenses such as electricity, materials, supplies for classroom, and contractor services. On the other hand, our capital project fund is used to build and maintain district buildings and purchase furniture and buses and technology and other equipment, as well as payment of debt. Money in this fund comes mainly from local property taxes because money is specifically allocated to build or maintain the capital assets. Salary generally are not paid out of this source of funds, basically just to take care of our debt and to take care and maintain building and technology.
Ms. Barrett.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
said generally not paid.
I know somebody was gonna ask that.
So just want to make sure, I mean, I know as capital projects as, facility needs. And
Yes.
so what would be the exception
The
where?
exception would be, it's like, we was to hire, like, when we did the high school that time, and we had someone else, to come out and help with the high school, we could have paid them a salary out of that if we needed them to do that.
And by help, you mean?
Like outside consultant and somebody like that.
Got it.
Yes.
It's like a
Yeah.
consultant then that is paying for or working towards that project.
Yes,
Okay, so could architectural fees be a part of our capital projects?
yes, we can pay architectural fees out of that too.
Okay, good to
Mhm.
know.
Yes, we can, and normally we do.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
The general fund revenue, next slide, okay. Right now, for fiscal year '23, we had $17.5 million approximately in the general fund, local revenue. This year, we're looking at 18.3, and then we have an increase, we're looking at a $740,742. State revenue last year was $33,573, $785,100. This year, we got $36,401,162, which is an increase of $2,827,378. Federal revenue, $75,000 last year, and we budget $75,000 this year. So we have an increase in revenue this year. We're looking at approximately $3,568,120 approximately, based on the House Ways and Means budget, because we still don't know yet. It's just based on their budget, because they may cut or they may add. We still don't know. It's always a working budget. And our expenditures, as you look and see from last year to this year, we're projecting the expenditures to increase by about $5.4 million. And out of that increase, 87% of that is going to be taking care of our salaries and our fringe. Utilities is going to be about $148,875,000 increase, which is about 75%, and that's our district insurance and maintenance. Our district insurance, we have not gotten any numbers yet, so I'm still using most of last year's number. We normally don't get that until some part of May, telling us whether or not our building insurance is going to increase, whether or not our general liability is going to increase, and I haven't gotten that yet, so it's still not in there. But utilities, we sort of do an estimation based on what we have the prior year, and that's in there. Maintenance is how we take care of our building, and we got a little increase for that. And we also have not done our district contracts yet, so we don't know whether or not that's going to increase, but we are working on that now. So hopefully we'll have some more numbers on the next time we have a reading. Kelly Services, we projecting that to go up about $100,000, because right now, by looking at it, the bill, I think it's like $1.something million that we have paid so far in Kelly Services. So we projecting that increase, because I gave you it's a schedule in the Exhibit A to tell you where it went from last year to this year, how Kelly Services has went up. I think it was like $98, but I think it's $135 now per substitute.
Ms. Ramona, since we're right there on that, what all do we cover with Kelly Services? Is it just when a teacher is absent, or is there other costs?
We have long-term subs, we have custodians in there, we have teachers' assistants, and this regular substitute for teachers when they're absent, whether long-term sub for teachers or whether teachers' assistants, custodians, various other positions in there.
So certified and classified.
Yes. And if you look at the exhibit, it shows you exactly A, right here, Kelly Services. We are now at $135 as a pay rate for a certified substitute teacher, where as of '21, we were at $89 a day. So that went up. And you can look at all the rate increases that we have gotten for this year here.
So a long-term sub, would that be someone that, like a position where we haven't filled and we're having to have someone in that class?
It could be.
Possibly?
As we're talking about substitutes, if you don't mind me asking a
Go ahead.
question, and that is, I know during COVID, we had kind of a long-term sub almost placed at different buildings, knowing that there was the likelihood each and every day that there would be somebody that was out. And is that would that be a cost savings to identify? No, to have one person by building to say, okay.
Because sometimes we go over the one vacancy or fill rate for the day.
Okay. Just a thought. Thank you.
Ms. Barrett, can I ask real quick, just because we're on Kelly Services? Did you just said we're going to be over 1 million as of now, or over 1 million by the end of the year?
As of now.
Okay, so I'm just asking, if we're over a million now, and we have budgeted 850,000, and we're not at the end of our year yet, we still have 2 months, right, left? Why is next year's projection only at 950,000?
Because we're going to try to curtail that. We are looking at that now to cut that expense, because we're just trying to cut some of that expense. I may have to go up on the next reading, on our next reading, but we're trying to look at everything right now and to save as much money as we can and see where we can cut. So
can I ask you and Ms. Hamilton a combined question very quickly? Ms. Hamilton, when do we get our contracts back? When will we know our numbers, kind of like heading into next year?
So contracts will be issued on April the 17th with the due date of May 10th.
Okay, and when do we approve our budget? When do we do our second reading on our budget?
I think it was May 18, I think, something in there, I can't remember.
My rationale for asking that is, if we have teachers leave, heaven forbid, would we, based on that information, go ahead and increase our Kelly, knowing that?
Yes, that's what I'm waiting on, Kelly's, to get information, to see who's leaving, what are we going to do to be able to fill those long-term positions, and hopefully we can fill them. If not, yes, we will definitely have to increase Kelly's service bill more.
Okay, so this one is one that this number is not by any means settled.
Right,
Okay.
it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's just right now on the absentee rates and stuff but we have not actually getting a real good numbers yet until after we see the contracts are in, then we'll know.
I got you. I have one more quick one that's not, it's on the first one, salaries and benefits. That increase of almost $5.5 million, is that taking into account I think the governor is trying to push for $2,500 more for teachers, wasn't that? Isn't that correct? So that's already got that factored in?
Yes, I have a breakdown of everything, so a little
thank
later
you.
on. Okay, this is just a general synopsis of everything.
Miss-
Oh, yes, for state, the $2,500, yes, is for state teachers and the bus drivers, but I'll go over that a little bit more in detail.
Gotcha.
Okay. And the admin support service, if you look at it, $421,000, because we had an increase. Technology have a lot of needs, so it's like $401,000 that they had requested, and then was $10,000 that we had to take care of for the coastal, for Empire Health. That went up a little bit for mental health. Okay, the operating expenses right now, we don't see anything, foresee anything going up on that. That's normally like our instructional supplies, the SROs, they're all in that, and we see that's going to be pretty flat so far.
Well, we have a $0 increase, but yet the number is a $10,000 increase. Because it's 823 to 833.
Oh, yes, yeah, that is right. I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
So the typo was in the increase?
The typo is an increase,
Okay,
right.
Okay, so that's a $10,000 increase there?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Okay, and total revenue over expenditures. Fiscal year '24, our projected revenue is going to be $54,809,028. Expenditures we're looking at is $57,412,457, which we're going to be, so far have a deficit of $2,603,430. And we got to also be reminded that fiscal year '24 is the last year that we're going to be claiming indirect costs, because indirect costs is also helping us to balance this budget this year that we're getting from ESSA. So if we don't have, in 2024, if we don't have the indirect from ESSA, we could possibly be even more.
Ms. Barrett, the estimate of 876, if our expenditures are over 2 million, where does the 876 coming from?
Okay, the 876 is coming from our indirect costs. Like ESSA, we got like 22 something $million, and we can get a percentage of that for indirect costs. And I think we had like $1.7 million, and I just divided by the 2 years that we can claim it, and that came up to $876,000 that we put in there. But I will have a breakdown and go over it a little bit more in depth for you.
So I was going to ask, is that a firm number? Because if we needed the full 2.6 to balance the budget, could the full amount be taken from ESSA?
Well, it's all based on the expenditures. If you don't have enough expenditures to claim indirect costs, you can't claim it. You have to claim it once your expenditures has already been done, and we're only going to have like maybe $876,000 worth of expenditures for this year that we're going to claim. And until we spend the actual funds, we can't claim indirect costs until the fund is spent.
Understood.
Okay, how did we get there? Exhibit A. Okay. General fund, in 21, we had a general fund deficit of $1,689,693 that was never funded. And if you look at Exhibit 1A, this was, we had a continuing resolution in 2021, and continuing resolution means that you don't have to balance your budget, you just go with the prior year budget. And all the state, everybody went with a continuing resolution that year. So that's why we never really addressed the $1.6 million that we was in deficit in 2021. We never addressed that. Okay, in fiscal year '22, we balanced the budget by moving retiree position into ESSA and increase our ESSA indirect costs and general funds. So for that year, we still didn't address the $1.6 million, but what we did is that we put positions into ESSA, and we had indirect costs that help us balance the budget. We never addressed where we were with the $1.6 million. And then we had mandates that were not fully funded. If you look at Exhibit B, we had a lot of different mandates. We had an insurance increase of 18.1% for employer only. We had a 1% increase for contribution of the retirement system. And we're looking at some more increases of 3.7% again for insurance for employer, and another 1% increase again for our retirement. So all of this has happened, and we still haven't got any more revenue in. So besides our regular revenue that we bring in through the taxes every time. And then we had a step increase to bring classified employee salary current, which was included in our salary study. And we had no millage increase since 2019 to 20, and we had an increase in operating costs. We had an induction in students, Exhibit C, and we had state revenue cuts. We just had one a few months ago, $615,000 after the 135-day student count. Any question?
I do, Ms. Barrett.
Yes.
On the first line of that slide, the FY '21, you keep talking about this $1.6 million that was never funded. That is not money that we owe, correct?
No, that's not money that we owe. That's money.
So we're just...
That's just money that we couldn't balance the budget with. We didn't have enough money to balance the budget.
So in fiscal year 2022, we decided just that...
Instead of, we never addressed the issue. Instead of addressing the issue to balance the budget, we went and put the retired positions into ESSA. And y'all remember that the older board members, remember in 2022, we put the positions and ESSA to balance the budget, and I keep giving you two scenarios, one with ESSA and one without. Well, this is where we are now, without ESSA.
Okay, so my question is, in fiscal year 2022, we should have reduced our budget by $1.6 million.
Exactly, but we didn't. 87% of our expenses are salary and fringe.
Right, I got you.
So,
I got you. So, but now for this budget, we're still leaving that number in there?
well, we're a little bit more. We're like 2.6 million now. Because you remember when we do all of these mandates, we do anything we do for classified, like step increases. Classified, we don't get any money from the state. All of that have to come from our general fund, which is our local money. We get no money from the states. And of course, the state don't fund us 100%. They only fund us 75%. So that means we got to come up with the rest of that money ourselves.
Correct. But my question is, we just keep passing along this $1.6 million like we have it, and we haven't had it for several years.
That's
but
correct.
we just keep pretending like we have it.
Right.
So why don't we stop pretending like we have it and take it out of the budget?
Well, it's not like taking it out of the budget. You have to cut expense in order to balance a budget.
Correct.
Right. So if we cut it out of the budget this year, next year, if you haven't decreased your expenses or increased your revenue, you're still going to have that same problem next year because you have not addressed the issue. And the issue is that it's like your own personal account. If you have because the fund balance is like our savings account for the school district. Okay, if I have a job and I go out and I got some extra money, let's say I got some stimulus money, I got my money from taxes, and I went out and I bought me a new car, and I bought all this extra expense, and then I keep paying it out of my savings account. Eventually, I'm not going to have any money because I have not. Number one, I haven't been on and got a cheaper car, so I didn't decrease my expense. Number two, I did not win and got an extra job to pay for that.
Correct.
So I have no revenue coming in. So the next year, if I don't do something different, I can pay for it out of my fund balance, but I haven't really addressed my issue is that I don't have any revenue coming in and I haven't decreased my expense.
Correct. But in your analogy, you just said, and I just keep spending that money, right?
Yes.
So at some point, we've got to realize we've got to stop spending that money in order to make things line up.
But how are we going to stop spending it? What expenses are we going to decrease? How are we going to increase revenue? So the only way for us to stop using our savings account, we're going to have to find some way to decrease our expenses or increase our revenue.
But according to your general fund revenue page that you gave us, we are estimated for a $3.5 million increase this year.
Yes, but we also estimated for a expenses increase too. So revenue and expenses give you the difference. If you have less revenue and more expense, that's going to be a difference. And either you got a positive or you got a negative.
Sure.
Right.
But isn't that the point of us having this budget work session, that we try to figure out how to cut money from the budget?
That's right.
Okay.
That's the point.
Okay.
To figure out. I just want to let you all know where we are so
I
you can
gotcha.
try to figure it out.
I got you.
Okay. And then, as I said, we had a reduction in students, and that plays a big difference. We have state revenue cuts. All of that plays a big difference in our revenues. Okay, and the legislative mandate expenditure in the fiscal year 23. We had a teacher salary increase. Remember, our teacher got $4,000 last year. For each sale, each teacher got $4,000. And that was, plus they got a step. We had to give them a step. That was $1.3 million. We had the fringe we had to pay on that increase. This was $415,751. We had health insurance increase of 18.1%, which was a half a year that we did in January, which came up to $391,337. And what the state did, they absorbed we had positions that we had in EIA fund, which is 100% funded. They absorb it into our new funding source and put it into our other monies, and that was $719,707. That's what they call the roll-up money, and put it all into this other funding for us. And then we had to absorb expenses roll up at the state level on our EIA, aid to district, $179,641. That was fund that they used to give us, like, to help the district do various other things, and it was in our EIA fund. Well, they don't give it to us like that anymore. It's all rolled up now into one funding source, which is the state aid to classroom. So all of that's been gone. And then the total expenditure for that year was $3,345,473. And as of course you know, that year, we had to take that, and we have to take the money from expenditures, position, and we budgeted and from ESSA, and took it to positions and take it out of the general fund, and we put it into ESSA so we can be able to balance the budget that year. And then we had a salary study, 2023. It was $760,000, and we had the fringe on that was $234,922, which give us a total salary and fringe of $994,992. Everybody remember with the salary study and how we went on and adopted the salary study? Well, that was part of that too. And then we got projected mandates based on the House and Ways and Means budget. We have teacher salary scale. They want us to do $2,500, plus we got to do a step. Plus I had to include the position from ESSA back into the general fund now, because we're not going to have enough money in ESSA to pay for those positions. So now we're $2.3 million that we have to take care of in the general fund. And the related fringe benefit of that is $729,000 and some change, and we got an estimated increase in employee share of retirement for fiscal year 2024 is 1%. And remember, last year we only did half of the 18.1%, but this year, coming up, we're going to do the whole 18.1%, plus we're going to do half of the 3.7%. So that's going to be a lot more increases. And then we had an estimated increase in employee share of the health insurance for this year of 3.7. For half a year, it's 1.87 starting in January, which is going to cost us $101,482. And then we had an estimated state increase in the bus driver schedule of $2,500 per sale plus 20%. Now, we don't have to give the bus drivers the whole 20%, but we have to give them $1.82 on every sale. That's what the state says, but we have to give them $1.82 plus the $2,500, which is going to cost us $295,785. And then what they did is they roll up a few more other funds. They said, well, let's roll up some more funds for them. So they roll up our career specialists, our nurse, and our health and fringe positions, all those positions we were had in the EIA. This year, they roll them up and they put in that state aid to district, which is in our general fund, and that amount was $839,355. And a total increase this year going to be like $4,067,014.
I think we're missing the number in there
Yes, I
somewhere.
think so, too.
I think.
She got it up.
Okay, Mr. Mona, I have a question. Teacher salary schedule increase includes positions from ESSER. You said we had to pull them out of ESSER because we do not have the money in ESSER to pay for those?
That is correct. That's correct.
But if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Reed told us at our last budget work session that we still had $17 million in ESSER funds to spend. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So help me understand why we have to pull those out if we have money in ESSER.
Sure. The $16 million in remaining funds are budgeted on various account lines. There's still the $4.5 million that has to be spent on learning loss. Okay, and so all of that is for our academic programs like Open Court, etc. The remaining amounts include salaries of positions that are currently in ESSER 3. There are funds set aside for capital projects for what we originally had budgeted for the middle school project. Monies we had budgeted originally for installing the barbering and cosmetology programs at TCTC, and other monies for human resources like our signing bonuses, our ESPER program for employees. So they're It's $16 million in there, but they're committed to various line items.
Now, Dr. Reed, just correct me, but you did say at the last one that that $16 million can be amended if need be.
Yes, sir, it can be.
Okay, so if need be, we could still fund these positions out of ESSER.
Yes, for this year. And then the next year, we still have the same problem. How are we going to? Yes,
Sure.
it just really.
But it does buy us another year.
Yeah, it buys
Okay.
another year, that's true.
Okay. Dr. Reed, I just have a question just based on what you just said, and maybe I misunderstood you. The 4.5 million, the 20% that was mandated for learning loss?
Yes, sir.
We have not spent that yet?
Not in totality. It's sort of being spent side by side like the other money.
Got you. And so the plan is to continue that, like, progressive spending until it goes out in '24?
That would be the plan, yes, sir.
If I may?
Sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
If you'll look in the inside of your folder there, you have all the itemization for how the ESSA funds are being spent. We printed out the budget line for you. You'll have ESSA 2 as well as ESSA 3, every account number and
That's
every
this big,
account
thick
line.
packet,
It
Dr.
is.
Cave?
If you'll
Okay.
go to page 3 in that document, you'll see the account numbers as well as how every penny is being budgeted, the current expenditure, year-to-date, the encumbered, remaining balance, with the total at the bottom. And then you have that for ESSA 2, and then you have the same back and front for ESSA 3 that shows you what's left, $554,156.69. And then for ESSA 3, $16,192,422.32. Do you see those two documents?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, and that'll give you better information as to where all that is being spent. That'll substantiate what Dr. Reed is saying.
And Dr. Cave, the percent on that form in that last column, like the 100%, that is what's left, or that's what's already been spent? 100% of that is left, or 100 of that has not been spent yet?
The remaining balance is what's left.
Okay. All right.
That's the same, that's 100% still remaining.
Okay.
The $4 million of the ESSER funds, from the ESSER 3 funds that are dedicated to learning loss, I thought a lot of that was dedicated towards content specialists. Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. We had the content specialists to work, yes, on that issue, and then we also had academic programs. So yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, if you look on that sheet, they're even coded learning loss, those account numbers, so you can see that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay.
As we move forward with regards to ESSER, I mean, I know that the effort is to try to absorb that into general fund in an effort to better prepare for next year and to be financially better prepared for next year. You know, until all of these ESSER funds are spent, though, I feel like that helps us, you know, I know in budget preparations before and creating and balancing the budget, as you mentioned, we had a this and we had a that. With that, we had the ESSER funds to balance.
Right.
I respect the effort to try to get those positions back into our general fund, but I do feel, you know, if we're looking at a deficit, I'd rather use those funds to fully fund those staff positions in this year, and to maximize the funds that we've received from ESSER to the fullest that we can.
Okay. Okay.
One more real quick question, Dr. Reed. If I'm looking at the right paper, the 554,156, that is what's remaining in ESSER 2?
That's correct.
Is that money accounted for?
Pretty much, yes, sir.
Okay. And that money has to be spent by?
September 30th of this year.
Of this year. Thank
And
you.
we want to get it out sooner than that.
Sure.
But
Thank you,
yes.
Dr. Reed.
You're welcome.
And I can dig a little bit, but that money is earmarked for what? What would that mostly be used for?
We've been using that money primarily for after-school programs.
Got
And hopefully, if we have some left over, we'll use a little bit of it for summer programs, we hope, yes.
Good to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Reed, since you mentioned the summer programs, can you help me understand how we are able to correlate the advantages? I know it is advantageous, the robotics and different things kids do, but do we actually measure the learning loss or how they do compared to other kids that aren't able to participate, or is there a measurement?
We try to we're trying to assess those children the same way, like in the regular programs. They come, they get that additional assistance and tutoring in the after-school programs. We haven't exactly measured how the students are performing juxtaposed to before when they started. We're just giving them that extra boost at this point.
Is there a correlation between the state, like EOC, I would be familiar with at high school level? Are there things that support those things that are measured?
Not as of yet. When our secondary programs, we're really trying to get a lot of our high school students caught up through our Twilight program and through our Cap and Gown program, as well as releasing the Genius, so that they can really, we're trying to get a lot of them, to graduate. So we haven't correlated with EOCs or any other post-secondary SATs or anything like that. We're just doing core instruction and assistance.
Since we're talking about learning loss, can I find anywhere where we're supporting interventionists or things that support the children that need the extra boost during the school day?
Well, nothing that has been explicitly paid out of ESSER funds. We have the content specialists who are assisting the instruction and making sure we're aligned with the guaranteed viable curriculum. We have, of course, after-school programs and some other supplemental learning opportunities. But otherwise, we have our instructional interventionists, our individuals within the schools, and then we're doing the extra programs like Twilight and like Cap and Gown and Releasing the Genius and robotics and Original Six. All of that to and those funds are coming in with different funding sources, but that's what we're going toward. But no correlation in terms of pre and post, on the assessments as of yet. And we do have formative assessments coming up, so we're hoping we'll see some of the fruits of that labor. But right now, as we do it along, we don't correlate that.
So if I may add some additional comments to that, we have a new assessment system called iReady, and iReady provides that the ability for us to be able to track the data to see how our children have done over a period of time. So we'll be able to correlate how our children have been doing since we implemented that system. We'll be able to do a comparative analysis to see how they did on MAP when we changed over, because we had MAP when we began with the learning loss that was purchased there, or that was purchased by the state. And then we were using that, so we can look at that data. And then now we've moved to iReady, so you'll be able to see how we've grown by the use of that tool. So you will be able to do a comparison to be able to see how the children have moved, or the progress. So that data will be made available to you. I would like to be able to add some additional comments. You asked a question in terms of interventionists being paid for out of the learning loss and ESSER. Since historically looking at how the money has been spent in the district and where interventionists have been paid for out of, it appears historically, and what is being done now, is that those funds, interventionists are normally paid for out of title funds and paid for out of priority funds if the schools have that funding, or paid for now, for lack of a better term, in terms of if they have ATSI, if they have enough money, because those funds are very limited. It's always a better use to use money that's consistent to be able to fund those types of positions than to use money that's not going to be there for an extended period of time. So historically, looking at what the money has been used for in this district, it seems as though you use reoccurring pots of money to be able to pay those interventionists so that they can have longevity of use.
So, Dr. Cave, based on that statement, does that mean you are trying to push our interventionists into our general fund salary? I'm not sure if that's the right word.
No, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm keeping those into title funds are not in the general fund. So those, I'm keeping those in title, if those interventionists can be paid for out of there. We take a certain number of positions and we pay for those out of the title funds, because I'm almost sure that the district will remain free and reduced, we'll have a certain percentage.
Sure.
So those schools are probably going to continue to get a substantial amount of money that they can use to be able to fund those types of positions. And it gives the principal the flexibility to be able to utilize that money in that way. And the children sincerely need those interventionists in the building.
Sure.
And to be able to use that to support reading and math instruction.
And Dr. Cave,
ESSA
whenever-
is going away. So it's not good to be able to give them that type of instruction and then take it away. Because in order to have school improvement, you need sustainability of services.
Sure. So whenever you're saying the title funds, that's all of the different,
Yes.
I know there were multiple categories of
Yes.
title. So,
And you have those listed as well in your packet.
and is that money stable money, Dr. Cave, or does that change from?
It changes. I'll let Dr. Reed answer that. It's stable money, but it does fluctuate in terms of the amount of money we get. Dr. Reed?
That is correct. And it's been stable since the last 30 years or so. The good thing is, even with the influx of the COVID relief dollars, our federal funds have stayed the same, and that's nationwide.
Okay. So I agree that we need those interventionists and we need to make sure that we have those. So pulling those into the Title I money, we feel like that is sustainable. That's something we can continue to do.
Most definitely. That is something we can continue to do.
And
And I highly recommend that we continue to do that.
And Dr. Cave, is there any thought going into next year for more interventionists, or do we feel like we have what we need?
It's always good to have more. I'd love to be able to give every school a substantial amount of interventionists. We just don't have the money to be able to do that unless we're going to use some additional funding.
Okay.
Because the money for ATSI and the money for priority is very limited.
Limited,
Because
right.
remember, we did the presentation, the number across the state has increased. So they increased the number of schools identified, but they did not increase the pot of money to divide
Correct.
across the state.
Thank you.
If I may, in the presentation at the last budget work session on our federal funds, learning how those federal funds are being used, and primarily in staff positions, a lot of those staff positions were created to reduce class size. That counters with a lot of our district efforts to right-size our staff. So I feel like the funding balance, when we talk about trying to bring in all of these actual salaries from ESSER back into general fund, there seems to be a challenge with, we're trying to make smaller our class sizes with federal funds and staffing needs, but yet we're also trying to reduce staff. Can you speak to that at all? I mean, as a parent, I'm always looking for a smaller class size. I think that's going to aid in better instruction. But, as we're struggling with these budget issues, can you speak to that and the challenge that creates?
Actually, I don't think our class sizes are out of the norm. Our class sizes are not exorbitant in terms of in size. I think why we have the difficulty now with some of our class sizes being a little larger in certain places is because we don't have the teachers. So to make an adjustment, what we have done is we have combined some of the classes, and we have made in order to accommodate the teacher shortage. I think that when we are able to get more staffing, that is going to equal out. But I want you to realize that in order to be able to right-size the district there and speak to that budget shortfall, there are only certain things that we can do. And I do respect your opinion wholeheartedly about using the ESSA funding because it is available. But we do need to work on right-sizing the district. We need to try to either reduce staff, or we need to reduce salaries, which we don't want to do because we need to be as competitive as possible, or we need to be able to try to figure out if we're going to get a millage so that we can get out of the place that we find ourselves in and stop for how Ms. Barrett said one time when we were making a presentation, kicking the can on down the road. We've got to be able to address it and figure it out. So we have some hard decisions that we have to make. And for a period of time, with all due respect, Ms. Whitkin, even as a parent and having been a former teacher who taught a class of kindergartners of 32 children with a paraprofessional, it can be done. It's going to take a little bit of work, but it can be done. We may have to get to that point just for a brief moment, so that we can get out of the place we find ourselves in, and then we can move past it. Because in Colleton, we don't have big classes. There are some districts who are far larger than we are. And I know that we want to be different, and I respect that, and I want us to be different. But we, the 7 and me, we have to make some hard decisions, because I hear Mr. Irwin say that we need to address this. Why are we keeping the $1.6 million? Why do we keep doing that? And we can find a solution. It's just going to take some hard decisions among us to make those decisions.
I agree. Hard decisions have to be made. I just, your 32 number on kindergarten, that's not what I'm referencing at all.
Ma'am.
But I just want to be able to understand, and this is the process for sure. We're learning as we go. But I know I want to be able to fully fund the bonuses, the referrals, all that we need, the salaries that we need to attract the right people. The right people are going to give us the right instruction staff for our students to decrease the learning loss that we received during COVID. So that's the process that I'm trying to connect. I completely understand that the decisions have to be made that are hard, but I'm also trying to understand, okay, federal funds are being used to reduce class size.
They are.
But then too, I'm not interested in reducing staff. So
Yes.
it's
And neither am I.
Yeah,
I want everybody to keep their job.
I do
Right.
too.
I don't want to
Thank you. No, I'm good.
Okay. Dr. Cave, based on what we just said, I'm going back to Ms. Ramona's number of, for next year, $50 million for salaries and benefits, right? Dr. Cave, Ms. Hamilton, maybe Ms. Hamilton knows this. This year, we reduced the number of staff by attrition, assimilation, all of those things, right? Like, we have less staff, certified staff this year than what we've had in years past, correct?
According to.
Yes, but those vacancies didn't go anywhere.
No, okay, so my question is, this proposed $50 million, is that if we had every teacher that we need in the entire district funded, is that what this is, or is this a reduced number based on maybe what we have this year?
This is including all our vacancies too. This is our vacancies.
Okay, but are vacancies from this year, or is that also including the vacancies from the year before as well, is my question?
No, that's
Those
just-
are true vacancies.
Yeah, they're just for this year vacancies.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Second question, Dr. Reed, last question for you, I think. Dr. Cave says we use title monies for interventionists. I think probably all of us in here agree we need more interventionists. Is there a way that you can add water to your title fund money and get us some more money so we can hire more interventionists? Or is your budget maxed out?
Yeah. What happens is, Mrs. Wickham mentioned the class size reduction. What happens with Title I is that the formula is based on a school-wide model. So let's say Bells is going to get $350,000 based on a formula. That's what they're going to get. And they'll take that money and they'll put it into that site, and they may be able to fund 4 teaching positions, and then the rest can go to technology or materials and supplies. So the only elasticity in those amounts will help with some of these increases. So the monies don't move that much. So I can't water it down to make a bigger stew.
Okay, so you just said sometimes we use title money for technology, yes?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Can we pull that money out and use maybe capital funds or whatever to fund that technology? Does that help us in getting another interventionist or no?
It's not a lot of money.
Okay.
We're only talking about a couple of $1,000s.
Okay, got you. Okay.
Okay.
I was trying.
I
Sorry.
understand. I understand.
That's true.
Water makes
Okay.
things grow.
Okay. And then normally, we ask the board, what do they like to see in the budget? And I know we wanted to see incentives, and I know that when Ms. Hamilton did a survey, there were some teachers was interested in seeing incentives. So we came and we did a proposed incentive for the employees. We had a staff with 5 to 10 years. We had it at $500, so we went down and decreased it and at $250. And for staff from 11 to 20 years, we would give them $500. And a staff from 21 to 25 years would be $1,000. And this would cost the district about $298,585. And this is without us putting a fringe on top of that. And then we have a proposed employee referral bonuses for classified would be $150, and for certified would be $200. And all the requirements would be there at the bottom. The referral candidates must complete the onboarding requirement and work for a minimum of 90 days. And also we had a proposed signing bonuses for fiscal year 2023-24. For the bus drivers and monitors would be $1,000, and for certified staff would be $5,000. And of course, we have eligibility requirement that goes along with this signing bonuses.
And that's ESSER funded?
General fund.
Okay. So our previous bonuses had been ESSER funded.
Yes.
Right, they were. So we're trying to build in sustainability, right, and try to get everything that was requested and try to build it into this budget. And Mr. Steibinger, we listened to you, we heard you by taking down the bonuses. And so we worked on trying to accommodate every request and build in sustainability model.
I tell you, that $5,000 signing bonus sounds similar to other districts, so I can appreciate that. But, and, no but, I mean, I know we're trying to work towards the reduction. If we can put that in ESSER.
Which one?
The proposed signing bonuses.
We'd have to go to the drawing board and make some adjustments, but, a lot of that depends on the additional moves that we're going to make as a board.
If we're able to afford the bonuses, I just personally would prefer us do something to help attendance, since that was an issue and Kelly's so high. If we could do something instead of the referral bonuses, which to me would be hard to keep up with, we could do something like we used to do to promote good attendance.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify that with the attendance. When we were going through one of the slides, just to clarify that, the amount for Kelly Services that we see there, that is all absenteeism, because the tutors and all are paid for out of ESSA, just to clarify that piece. So that money that you see is totally absent, is in there.
And then if you look at our student enrollment, the student enrollment, from 2016, it was 517 students. To 2017 was 522. We gained 7 students. 2017-18 was 5,737 students. We gained 15. But in 2019, we start losing students. We had 5,558 students, so we lost 179 students. In 2020, we had 5,339, so we lost 219 students. In 2021-22, we had 5,095 students, so we lost another 244 students. In 2021-22, we had 4,985, so we lost another 110,000 students, which gave us a total loss of students of 730. And today I got a report from, we got a report from Ms. Vons, and she's, the number is another 87 students that we lost. Yes. And if you look at your exhibit C, that's to tell you all the students and the loss.
When do we, Dr. Cave, do we have any way of knowing a projection of enrollment until school starts next year? Probably not.
Well, we're thinking about trying to do a pre-registration. We've been thinking about doing that, trying to make it all automated and have everybody to re-register. And one of the reasons we need to do it is because we need to get updated addresses and all of those things, information. Right. So we could do something like that because we've been thinking about doing it. But right now, probably the enrollment is, we normally start around 4,500 is where we, first day enrollment is normally about 4,500.
Approximately how much money is that for 730 students to lose?
Once upon a time, I could have calculated, but with this new funding formula, we don't know. They do like based on number of teachers now, but it has really hurt our budget a lot.
I'm sure, definitely.
That's a lot. And since we get paid based on the number of students, that's, well, now it's teachers, but it's all still equivalent to students. And every time we lose students, we get a budget cut. So I'm expecting another budget cut for 135 days for this.
Let me ask a question. When we lose a student from like the day school and they go to adult ed, is that credit back to the school, or is it a different fracture altogether?
It's different. It depends on whether they're still a part of the cohort when they graduate. It's how it's funded.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And normally, this time of the year, we'd be entertaining a TAN, but because we do have a healthy fund balance, we don't have to do the TAN. I know there was time, and Susie can attest, where we couldn't even pay our bills, right? We have to decide which bills to pay because we don't get our funding until taxes doesn't come in until the end of September. So we'd have to pay a TAN in order for us to be able to say which bills we're going to pay. And it has been so wonderful not having to worry about that because we got a healthy fund balance. But if we continue to have to fund our regular operational out of our fund balances, we're not going to be able to have any money because eventually, like our own savings, it's going to eventually go unless we find some way to stop spending so much from our fund balance and we sustain monies that's coming in, sustain revenue or cut expenses. It's still going to create a problem that's going to be down the road. We're just going to kick the can down the road. So it's a problem that's been existing for a while. I mean, we have gone and we have balanced the budget over not giving classified employees raises for 5 years. Y'all remember that? We had to do that. We had to balance the budget over doing furloughs, taking 10 days from our employees over the years. We had to balance the budget because of that. And we have not really got the revenue where we needed to be. So we are still deficit in our revenue where we should be. And our expenses hasn't gone up, but our student enrollment hasn't going down. So that's what's really creating our problem.
So, quick question. I understand that the teachers are dropping nationwide. I get that. They can leave, they can go to another profession, whatever. The children still have to be educated. So
Right.
where
Where
are
are the
they?
children?
And are we losing at an equal amount or an equal rate as other counties around us? Or are we losing children to other counties, or are they going to other schools? Where are we losing those children?
That's a good question.
Some of our children are going to virtual schools. I have the numbers from the various virtual schools around. Some are going there. Some go where their parents are working. So it varies as to where the children are going. Some have moved away to various places.
So, Dr. Cave, can I just piggyback off of what Craig, this was my question. Do we have any, are we doing any research, any studying? Are we doing anything to try to figure out not only where they're going, but how we get them back? Is there any effort being put to that?
There is effort being put to that. Last year, we made calls to all of the homes to try to get the children to come back. Some parents, that's why we opened the virtual school last year and why we joined the Low Country Consortium, to try to keep those children in-house so that we could at least still count them on our roll. So we do have efforts to try to call those families to try to get them back. It's very difficult to get a child back when they go to the cyber academy, or when they're homeschooled. Some parents choose. There's a very strong homeschool connection, or when they go to Erskine online, or when they go to Connections Academy. When they do those, it's very difficult to get them back to come to the regular in-person environment, but there are efforts to try to get them to come back.
Dr. Cave, just as a reporting asset or aspect of it, do we have to account in any way for those kids that we lose? Like, do we have to say, we lost little Billy because he went to private school, we lost little Susie because she went virtual? Do we have to?
No, we don't have to account for those children. The only children that we are accounted for are the homeschool children. We have a homeschool report that we have to do. But the children at all the other schools, they show up in a report, but no, we don't account for them.
Okay.
We have to provide services sometimes if they request services, though.
Dr. Cave,
Yes, sir.
if a student parents move to another, move their child to another county,
Yes, sir.
and as long as they got a resident, we don't even have to give them permission to take their child to another school. Am I right? And we won't even know it.
If they have a residence in that county,
That's right.
yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't even have to give them a vote to.
Right, we
Yeah.
don't. We don't.
So we won't even know.
Right, we won't know that they've gone. Some parents request the transfer out of,
Right.
yeah, out of respect, but no, we don't know.
And I know I've talked with several parents who pull their children out of the school districts and basically homeschool them. And, it's like talking like, well, you don't want to try them back in the school. But the convenience of, if I'm working, I have to stop what I'm doing to come pick them up, etc. It's much easier to just homeschool them. They're here. I don't have to worry about leaving to go. It's just the convenience of it. I mean, even though we're suffering, and hopefully that they know that our school is out of the state takeover and we're working to get the rest out. Hopefully they'll see this and decide to, enroll them once again.
And we can do that. We're making efforts to expand programming. Programming attracts families and it attracts children. So the more programming we can do in our schools, the more we can expand our career and technology programs, our CTE programs, and the more opportunities we can do with our middle and high school children, we'll attract more children to our schools that way.
Dr. Cave, I'm sorry, this is a little bit off topic, but
That's okay.
just based on what you just said. students in our county who are not enrolled in our school district, do we have to make our TCTC services available to those?
If they request those services, we do.
So that would be.
That's required by law.
So that would be Colleton Prep, Northside,
We do.
okay.
We
North
do. We do have the ability, and we have the right to be able to charge them. We do have students from those schools who do attend our schools.
Just roughly, Dr. Cave, do you have a number? I mean, are we talking 5 or are we talking 20?
I don't have a number. I would
Okay.
say less than 10.
Okay, thank you.
I would say less than 10, yes.
Dr. Cave, I'm glad you mentioned that we can increase our career and technology in middle and high, and I wondered, when we look at this budget, and we've heard from the principals that student engagement and classroom discipline is an issue that we need to improve, is that reflected in the budget?
Yeah, for teacher salaries.
It's, okay. It's for teacher salaries, it is. Discipline, what do you mean?
I meant for improvement on that, since in the discipline workshops and other meetings we've had with the principals, they mentioned the need for some type of professional development to support teachers with classroom management,
Well, we have-
student engagement.
Yeah, we have limited funds that we can use in the budget for that, but we do have professional development funds that are provided at the school level that are in general funds. Yes.
Okay, and if you look at this is the first draft of our working draft. I think you should have it. It says fiscal year 23-24. You have that.
Help me, Ms. Ramona, help me.
Oh, okay.
That's in our folder?
That's in your folder. It should be in the back.
And it says what? Give
Fiscal
me.
year 24. This is our first, it'll be our first reading, but right now I just got it as a working session.
So this is the
draft.
one in the upper left-hand corner says first draft with
Yes,
ESSER
yes,
indirect
sir.
costs? Okay.
Well, this is the detail of where we are, how we got increases, or where we decreasing, and it tell us about all the expenditures and what area we have increased in, whatever we have decreased in. But as I said, normally, this is just a working budget right now because we still have a lot of unknowns, but we have to have 3 readings, so I have to put the first reading, we have to have 3 readings. So normally, the first budget is just a budget to see where we are. And then normally, I have to get some more information because I still have a couple more departments that still have to sit down and give us some of their wishes that they need and their wants. And I still need to have some information from different entities that we have, like Insurance Reserve Fund. I have to get other information like that. So the budget will be changing along. And then hopefully, we're going to be looking at the budget really hard and see if any savings, because that's our main goal, is to try to save as much as we can. The budget, to balance this budget without having to use our fund balance so much. That's my main goal, because I want to make sure that we have enough fund to sustain us over the years to come.
Ms. Ramona, I appreciate this first draft, just so it can kind of puts it so I can see it. I just have a question, like, just one that just pops off, secretaries, clerks, and aides on that second page. It says next year is an increase of $540,000.
Remember, now, we had some positions that we had roll up. We had positions that were nurses.
Sure.
So all of those are in there, too.
Well, so that was going to be my question.
Yes.
Is there any kind of documentation that we can get that says this is why this number is what it is, or no?
Yeah, I have a letter from the state right here telling me what they roll up into that number.
I'm with you on that. I got you on that. But I'm saying like these other things, Office of Technology, it says $401,000.
Right.
Maintenance and ground care is $33,000. Is there anything to show us what that is, or no?
Yes, normally what they do, they give us a wish list of what they want, and we have a copy of that, so I can send that to you.
Okay.
Have that for you.
Just so I can kind of understand why the numbers are what they are. Thank you.
And normally, like for the utilities, there's really nothing but except that we know historically it always goes up because of cost of living.
Sure.
So we just do a percentage based on historical reviewing of all the bills, and I do an average and come up with a number for that one.
Ms. Barrett, you mentioned that the unfilled positions are included, so, hopefully we can get those filled. So I had a question about classified. I noticed on the website we are in need of some classified folks. Are those positions open to be filled now, or is that something we're waiting until we get a new budget at this point? I'm thinking of, off the top of my head, some technology positions that were open since beginning of the year, electrician, those kind of things. And my concern is that if we have the money, I'd like to see us fill it, because there are other state agencies that are looking to offer some really good salaries to folks, and I want our folks to be able to come and work for us
Right.
rather than take other state jobs. So we need to be mindful of that.
Right.
SCDOT is one that's
Yes.
looking at offering, really good salaries, especially with experience. So
Exactly.
do we have the funds now for positions that are open like classified, or we're waiting to hire later, or what's the status for the ones
No.
that are on the website?
Those are needs that need to be filled immediately. So it's currently in this fiscal year.
It's already in the vacancies.
In the vacancies.
We've already got in there.
So people that we know we can promote these jobs, and they'll be interviewed and able to move into those positions? Great.
It's already part of the budget positions.
So if I can just explain, so they're being advertised, the applications aren't coming in, but as they do come in, we do send those to Mr. Blakeney, but they are slow to come in.
And technology?
The same.
All
You
right.
need a vote
I'm just waiting
this?
on you to tell me how all of this is going to work. How we going to make all this work?
I'm just waiting for director from you all. Well, what we do is just go back to the drawing board and we see what else we can cut and see what else we can do. That's all
Do
we
we
can do.
consider this as a first reading?
Yes, no, sir. The first reading will be on April the 18th. I'm just letting you know where we are. In case you have any question, you need to ask me before then.
Okay.
But the first reading will be April 18th.
Okay, sounds good.
Ms. Ramona, if I'm looking at the back page of your first draft correctly,
Yes, sir.
we're showing a $6.1 million increase of budget from last year to this coming year?
That is correct, sir. Expenditures, and most of those are salaries.
No, I'm with you. Am I mistaken that at our first work session, it was 4.5 million?
No, that was the deficit that we were in, but because we went back and that was the deficit. The deficit was 4-point-something million, but we went back and we did some adjustment on incentives and things like that we cut. So we brought the deficit back to 2.6. But the 6.1 million is always, is the same. It was just a deficit that was 4-point-something million dollars. But we cut the deficit down to $2.6 million because we took out some things out of the budget.
Okay, so as of today, April the 4th,
Yes, sir.
you plan on coming to the board on April the 18th for first reading,
With this,
asking for $6.1 million more than we had last year.
yes, sir. Based on salaries and
Even
most of
though,
salary.
even though last year was the biggest budget we ever had, and even though we're continuing to hemorrhage students out of our district.
Well, the reason why, one thing we got to think about, even though last year was the biggest budget, every year the budget it increases based on the prior year. It compounds. If you had a big budget this year and you keep adding more expenses, it's going to be bigger the next year. It's
Well,
going to continue.
and I understand that, but unfortunately, as we've kind of learned tonight, we've been, to use your words, kicking the can down the road on that. I think it was $1.6 million. We've been kicking that down the road for a couple of years now. Instead of saying, no, we're not going to spend that, we just keep plugging it in there and saying that we're going to spend it.
Right. And right now, if we decide to use the ESSA fund to go ahead and balance the budget for next year, we have the same problem. It's going to be a little bit more because we have put more expenses in there. We've given step increases, we've increases the salaries for our teachers, all of that. Every year it gets more and more. Fringes go up all the time, mandates from the state goes up, so it's always going to increase every year.
Well,
We're taking the recommendations.
no, yeah, well, and that's what I was going to say, Dr. Cave, and this is just me, and I am just one voice and one vote, but I would, from my point of view, I would urge, let's continue to try to chip away at this budget and not bring an increase of 6.1 million for first reading. That's just my personal perspective.
That's going to be having to reduce, most of that 6.1 million, as you can see, is salaries and fringe. So, I mean, we have to reduce some salaries and fringe.
And how are we
Yeah.
gonna do
Do you
that
have
when the state requires us to?
Right, the state requires us to have that.
So do you have, because we have budget priorities.
Sure.
Okay, so my priorities line up with your priorities. We got that established. So what area do you want us to go back and work on? Because that's what this team does. We
Sure.
go back and we work on this every day.
Right, well, and.
So where do you want us to start cutting? Because the next place to cut is, the largest part to cut on is salaries.
So what I was going to say, Dr. Cave, and I appreciate that, but what I was going to say is we've got this first draft. Give us, or at least me, a couple of days to look this over, and I would be more than happy to make some recommendations. But
Okay.
I do know, Dr. Cave, I understand that the bulk of our budget is salaries, but I also, even before being employed with this district years ago, I started coming to board meetings whenever I moved back here in 2016. And I know that it has been mentioned multiple times from board members, both currently active now and previous board members, that our district was very top-heavy. So, I mean, if we're going to have to look at salaries, I think we don't look at salaries from those critical positions.
From teachers.
Sure.
I understand.
Sure.
I understand that, but,
But I would love to have a couple of days to look over this draft now that we have it. Thank you, Ms. Barrett. And, I mean, I would be more than happy to make recommendations.
And please call me if you have any questions or you need to see
Don't say
anything
that.
extra.
Don't say that. I have lots of questions, Ms. Barrett, and lots of questions.
I'm thankful to see we have a policy in our district that guides how we spend wisely with advanced planning, which we're doing, and to guide the spending for the greatest return to our students. So if we can keep that in mind, you know, we have to do what's best for our students, like we always said, so budget included.
Okay.
I have to agree with Mr. Irwin. I think, you know, we have a capable team of employees that can bring us a budget that's trimmed down a lot more. You know, unfortunately and unfortunately, it is not our responsibility to do the budget. I would love to sit down and go line by line by line, but we approve it.
Yes.
Y'all have.
And be working on it.
Y'all are working on it. So I have all faith and confidence that y'all can get it down closer to where we need it to be. I know there are still a lot of things on these lists that I see that are still wants, not necessarily must have, absolutely, you know, and a lot of what I look at aren't necessarily salaries, they're, you know, maintenance and grounds and things like that. I want us to have the best looking school around too. I want us to have the best fields and all of that stuff, you know, and I want us to have nice Toro riding lawnmowers, whatever, and F-250 trucks. But if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And if we can't afford to go up on salaries, we can't afford it. I understand that we want to do all these great things, and more power to us for doing it. But if we can't afford it, we can't afford it. And there's no reason for us to continue to go deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. We've got to figure something out. And even if it's a little inch at a time on different parts, then that's what we need to do.
Agree.
And it comes down to when we're looking at salary, it ties our hand, because it's like certain things we can't, because once the state mandates, it mandates. My most image, my importance is to have good teachers to educate our kids.
Agreed.
And they get the education that they need. That, you know, I look back at some of the other colleges and how sometimes the children goes to college and they have to start with Remedia and all this stuff. I want them to be able to do A&P and go and to jump into the program that they need. And we need the teachers that are capable of doing that. And I think if we can provide them with a good pay, you know, give them that readiness, the urge to do what they need to do to move our children forward. And I know it's a lot of work, and I know, but once we get our education, I feel, to where it needs to be, our level, our report card, I feel that we can get industries in Colleton County that will help fund a lot of the situation. Because when I look at different schools, Charleston County, you know, look at Allendale, we talked about that, you know, the money that they are able to come. And I know there is I think it's a factory, a plant that is coming.
Yes.
Hopefully we can benefit from that and move forward, you know, that's the goal.
Madam Chairman, I could not agree with you more on what you just said. I believe our school district will attract more industry and will attract more business. I think a outstanding school district providing our kids with challenges and the education that they deserve will cut down on the crime rate in our county. I think all of the issues that we have in Colleton County all tie back to our educational system. I agree wholeheartedly. And on the point that you made about getting quality teachers, my son graduated from Colleton County High School last year as an honor student. In the top, I think top 5% of his class, I believe. And he went to school at the Citadel, and he has had to take remedial classes for things that he actually got A's in our high school. So I agree. If we can get those quality teachers, give them that education that challenges them and prepares them, I absolutely agree with that. I wonder, Dr. Cave or Ms. Hamilton, and this will be my last question for tonight, I promise. In the draft that we're looking at under salaries, can you just tell me, is there anything in there that is a newly created position? Or is that all just the mandated $2,500 mandate and the fringe and all of that? There are no new positions in that, Ms. Hamilton?
No, we didn't create any positions.
Okay. Thank you.
One thing I think we need to look at is when inflation go up, we pay more for everything. So we have to keep that in mind in what we are doing.
Inflation's bad, Mr. Murdoch, I agree, but it's not 6.1 million bad.
It depends on what company you're riding in.
Is there more? Ramona, are you completed your?
Yes, I have. If no more questions, thank you so much.
Is there any more questions for Ramona?
I do not have a question, but I do want to say thank you, Ms. Barrett, Dr. Reed, Dr. Cave, Ms. Hamilton, whoever else is helping y'all work on this budget. Thank you very much for the hard work that you've done, and thank you for the work that you're going to do.
Well, if that's all, we can adjourn from our budget workshop. Good night, everyone.